All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining me. We'll go ahead and get started here. If you got questions, go ahead and post them. It's either going to be to the right of the video or it's going to be below the video. If you're on a mobile device, it's going to be below the video. Smaller devices, typically it's going to be below the video. All right, so let's go ahead and get started here. Scroll down, see the first questions. And if you're new to office hours, all right, so real quickly, Manu D says, hello, I have the Swing Caddy SC100 device. Please comment on its accuracy as compared to SC200 or the PRGR devices. So PRGR is the most accurate device that we've tested. It's on average 1.5% off for the club head speed. And it's actually right on for the ball speed. It's pretty much dead on accurate for the ball speed. The ball speed is the easiest thing to calculate because it's moving the fastest and it's also a symmetrical object. Whereas like a club head, right, it's moving slower. Then also it's not a symmetrical object. A lot of these drivers these days have cavities in them. They got these slots. There's all kinds of things going on there. So it's a little bit harder to lock on to the center of it. So the accuracy can be a little bit, and that is with any device. That is with not only the PRGR, the SC100 or the 200 or whatever it might be, but also your $18,000 flight scope, $18,000 GC quad, $25,000 TrackMan. They all have issues with this. So there's no device out there that's going to perfectly get the club head speed every single time, but there's going to be a small amount of variance there. But compared to our $18,000 devices, such as the Flight Scope and the GC Quad, when we tested, the PRGR is 1.5% off on the club head speed on average. Whereas I think that the SC200 was a little bit higher, it was the second best. Now the SC200 Plus was more off. I can't remember exactly how much it was. But what I would say, if you already have a swing speed device, like you say you have the Swing Caddy 100, you don't need to buy another device. It's completely fine. If you're looking to do club head speed training, every device that we've tested tells you if you are gaining speed or not. So maybe the SC100 would tell you you're swinging 100 miles per hour, and that might be a little off. And the PRGR might tell you that you're actually swinging 103 miles per hour. But if you increase your speed, let's say 7 miles per hour on the Swing Caddy 100, it might be a little bit off, but it's going to tell you went from 100 to 107, whereas the PRGR may tell you went from 103 to 110, if that makes sense. So what really matters is that you're seeing improvement. The whole point of having a feedback mechanism is to see if you're improving. And that's what these devices offer you. Every single device that we tested tells you if you are getting better or not. Now, the accuracy of that information changed from device to device, but they all tell you. So if you already have something, I would just stick with that. Unless you want to get the PRGR is the best, most accurate device. You could also swing with it without a golf ball. Something you cannot do with any of the Swing Caddy devices. The Swing Caddy 200 Plus you can, but we found that the swings, you have to put it in a certain mode to swing without a golf ball, and we found that it was way off when you did that. So I can't really recommend the SC200 Plus compared to the PRGR, because the PRGR is just a better device. It's more accurate, and on center face strikes, well struck strikes, it was actually surprisingly accurate usually within 5 yards on the distances. Now, PRGR is not going to know if you hooked it, right? It's not going to know if you hit a big hook or hit big slice or if you topped it, right? The Flight Scope is going to know that. It's going to see, it's tracking the flight of the ball, or it's going to give you some sort of error reading. So it's not going to be the PRGR is not going to be accurate in that sense. It's not going to tell you, it's not going to know if you topped it or not. So it may, if you top one, it may tell you that you hit it far because maybe your ball speed number was decent, even though you topped it into the ground. So like I said, if you already have the SC200, I would just stick with the SC200. You're completely fine. That's a great device. I had that device for a long time, and it worked great. So I would just stick with that. But if you want to get something new, I would recommend the PRGR. And if you want to get that, you can get it. If anybody's interested in the PRGR, we do have an affiliate link to that. We do make a small amount of money on that. Let me see if I can find that for you. Yeah, so I'll put this link here in the comments here, so you guys can follow that if you're interested in the PRGR. So I'm just going to put that link in there. If you're interested in it, follow that. Clay did a video where he talks about where he compared them all and all that stuff. So if you want to check that out, go ahead. But yeah, like I said, we do make a small amount of money, but honestly, we could make tons of money on tons of devices. Clay has a garage that's full of training aids and a bunch of junk, and we could have affiliate deals with every single one of them and make tons of money off of all of them. But we don't want to do that because we're not just going to sell you a product just because we can make money off of it. We're not necessarily selling you the product, but we're not going to be an affiliate for a product if we don't think it's actually good. Right. So Chad B says, I have trouble with trying to make a larger turn, but the club gets too long and seems like it cut him off. So I wouldn't be too worried about going too long. Obviously there is a threshold there for most people where, a point of, no returns basically. So I just try to find where that is. If you have a club head speed measuring device, like a PRGR or an SC200 or something like that, then you can read your club head speed with that and see kind of where the threshold is. But that's what I would recommend doing. I mean, look at Jack Nicklaus, look at John Daly, look at Arnold Palmer, look at, Johnny Miller. Look at all these great golfers, all-time greats who had long swings. Having a long swing is not necessarily a bad thing. It's just a matter of, is it worth it for you to have a long swing? Are you getting more club head speed? Because the whole idea of having the longer swing is so that you can create more space and time to accelerate the club. Well, if having a longer swing is not creating more speed for you, then it may not be worth it for you to do that. So you got to find where that happy medium is for you. I could take my club and I could go like this and swing way back like that, but that may not be beneficial for me. I find I hit the ball better if I'm kind of in this kind of position right here. So, for an iron, that's typically a little bit short of parallel. With a driver, it's basically right at parallel for me. But hey, if my swing went past parallel, I'd be okay with that as long as it got me more speed. And if it was short of parallel, I'd be okay too. It's just a matter of finding that happy medium for you. So I wouldn't be too, concerned with trying to get your club exactly to parallel or exactly in the right position. Just make sure you're getting a full shoulder turn that gives you the most amount of speed for you. And you can test that by using a feedback mechanism like a club head speed measuring device, like a PRGR or Swing Caddy or anything like that. All right. So James C says, I think I'm compensating for a weak grip by flipping the club. Will a stronger grip encourage me to avoid hooking by forcing me to open my hips more? Not necessarily. Changing your grip isn't going to change necessarily the way that you move your body. It can help. Most likely what will happen, though, is if you are already hooking the ball with a weak grip and you go to a stronger grip, it's probably going to make it worse. Because when you have a weak grip, right, and you strengthen it and you do the same thing that you normally do in your swing, it's probably not going to change your movement pattern. You're probably just going to close that face more, which is going to make the ball hook more. So I'm not saying go to a weaker grip. I'm just saying you may want to work through our Never Hook Again course and get that club working more down on plane. For those of you who aren't familiar, we have all these courses on the website that address key issues in the golf swing, especially with your ball flight. So we have our Top Speed Golf System, which goes over all the pieces of technique that are the most important. And then we have break-off courses like for chopping and chunking, hooking, slicing, all these kinds of courses. There's 20 plus courses on the website. We have a speed course, which is just all about getting distance. So if you're having issues with these things, then you may want to go check those courses out and work through the drills to fix that immediate issue that's going on. So to get to that course, to get to the hooking course, if you're struggling with a hook, I'd recommend going to our Stop Hooking, Never Hook Again course. And to get to that, just click the house icon at the top of the page. That will take you to the homepage. If you scroll down the homepage, you'll see a list of all the courses that we offer on the website. And you just scroll through there, you'll see the Never Hook Again course. Start working through those drills, because basically what was causing you to hook the ball is the face is closed to your path. Strengthening your grip is going to make the face close more, most likely, with the same movement pattern. It's possible that strengthening your grip could make you move your body a little bit more differently, because what happens is if you have a very weak grip, right? So that means that my thumb is basically going straight down the shaft here. What happens is both my elbows are kind of in toward my hips, right? So that may make me move a little bit more differently in my backswing and in the downswing. Whereas if I have a stronger grip, now my arm is more internally rotated. My elbow is pointing more toward the target, right? And then my trail arm, oops, dropped my club. My trail arm is a little bit more externally rotated. My elbow pit's kind of pointing up to the sky, and that's going to put me more in a stronger position at impact. So you can try it, but it's not necessarily, I wouldn't do it and just expect your hook to go away. You're probably still going to hook it. But doing this may help you in the long run to be able to be in a more, anatomically correct position to be able to come into contact a little bit more easily, because going from this to that is a little bit harder than going from this to that, right? So it's a little bit easier with a stronger grip. You just have to move your body in the right way. So you need to work on your movement pattern for sure to fix that hook. Your grip just isn't going to do it. If you don't change your movement pattern, then you're most likely just going to still hit the hooks. All right, so William H. says, how do you eliminate the chicken wing? So a chicken wing, first of all, there's really two kinds of chicken wings. There's the good one and the bad one. I'm not talking about the food. Obviously, those are good. But chicken wing as in what we see in a lot of players like Brooks Koepka, Jamie Sedlowski. If you're not familiar with Jamie Sedlowski, he was a long drive guy. He weighs like 180 pounds and beat all those really big guys twice. I think he won 2 World Long Drive Championships. And he's not a real big guy. He's got one of the most powerful swings that you'll ever see. And he had a bent lead arm coming into impact. If you look at Lee Westwood, Angel Cabrera, Jordan Spieth, you see a lot of people with bent lead arms. I believe JB Holmes also, he's a big hitter, also has a bent lead arm throughout a lot of the swings. So that kind of bent lead arm looks something like this, right? We're coming into contact. It's like this. I have forward shaft lean. I'm in great impact position. Like this is what Brooks Koepka looks like at impact, essentially, right? And then you see that club release out in front and then all the way around. The bad chicken wing is where we're seeing this. My body's not opening up. My arms are racing out in front, and I see something more like this through contact. That's the bad chicken wing. So a bad chicken wing is caused by the arms essentially out racing the body. So if you're turning off your hips, so you're coming in, you turn off your hips, you don't keep rotating, and the arms race out in front. That's where that chicken wing comes from. So you got to make sure that you're continuing to rotate those hips through contact. There could be all kinds of things that are happening in your swing, William. They're making it difficult for you to rotate your hips. Maybe you're bumping your hips out. Things are getting jammed up and blocked up, and you can't rotate. Maybe you're coming down steep because when you come down steep, you have to stand up to get that club on plane again. And when you stand up, you can't rotate. There's all kinds of things that can be going on there that make you chicken wing. It's impossible for me to say without seeing your swing, but I would look at some of those things that are going on. Your compression line, look at your spine angles, look at the things in the Tough Speed Golf system and make sure that you're doing those things so that your body can keep on moving. It may be just as simple as making sure that you're continuing to rotate through contact, continuing to push your lead hip and clear it out of the way, move it away from the golf ball and away from the target as you're coming into contact. It could be that you're kind of throwing your hips at the ball this way. Maybe you're trying to rotate your hips, but really you're just bringing your right hip toward the golf ball, your trail hip toward the golf ball, and that's just making you go like that, and you can't rotate. You're not really rotating when you do that. You're more just kind of thrusting your hips. That's what we call in the business. We call that goat humping, right? So you might have that goat hump chicken wing going on there as well. So we need to make sure that we're dropping this hip back and moving it out of the way so that we can continue to rotate and allow that, get that good extension through contact and get that club releasing out in front. So if you'd like me to look at your swing, I do offer unlimited swing reviews where you can send a video to me of your swing and I can have a look and see exactly what's going on there. Unfortunately, right now, I'm not taking on any new students, but I try to open up spots frequently so that because sometimes people have to drop out and so on and so forth, or sometimes my schedule opens up and I'm able to take on more students. So if you're interested, click that Get a Review at the top of the screen there, and that will take you to the swing review page. If you scroll down the page, you can join my waiting list. If you see a spot and you're ready to go, grab it and let's get started. But if not, click that waiting list, join the waiting list. And what will happen is it will put you on a list of people that get emailed first whenever I open up spots. And typically I do sell out to the waiting list. So if you don't join the waiting list, there's a good possibility that you may never get notified that I have spots available, and you may only be able to get lucky on and find a spot open. So make sure that you do that. We also have other instructors, Robin Rosado and Chris Hunsaker. I'm not sure if they have spots available right now either. All of us, a lot of people are practicing from home right now. So a lot of people are doing the swing reviews because it's a really good time to do it with the quarantine and everything going on, the stay home order. So keep that in mind. But yeah, if you're interested, make sure you do that. But look at those things in your swing, see what's going on. Try to get, work through some of the videos on the side to try to get the hips opening up. Look at what may be possibly going on with your hips, because that's really what's going on is you're just not getting the rotation, and it's the arms that are out racing the body that causes that chicken wing. But hey, if you got that good chicken wing that I talked about, that's actually desirable. That's something that you want, because that actually helps you to keep that club face square through contact. Because typically when that lead arm is straightening out, it's rotating, right? So when that rotates, that face is going like that. If I have that bent lead arm, my arm isn't rotating and that face is staying square longer through the impact zone. That's why you're seeing guys like Brooks Koepka, Angel Cabrera, Lee Westwood, Jordan Spieth. You're seeing those guys because they're keeping that club face square. Their rate of closure, ROC, is slower than what you'll see with a lot of other players who really roll the hands over through contact. So not saying it's a bad thing. Rory McIlroy has more of a rolled release through contact, and he does just fine with it. It's just a matter you have to have a little better timing when you do that. You're going to be a little bit more consistent. I tell you what, when Brooks Koepka, when he is on, Jordan Spieth too, when he is on, those guys, like, they're winning a lot of major championships, right? So definitely good and bad things. Good and bad, you got to weigh what you want. If you don't have more of a rolled release, it's going to be a little bit slower. If you're a really powerful player like Brooks Koepka, you can get away with it. But Jordan Spieth, you lose a little bit of distance because he's got that elbow bent and trying to keep it square longer. So some things to keep in mind. You got to weigh your options there. All right. So Daniel S. has played in very windy conditions today. Lots of missed greens help. So you and everybody else, it's definitely tougher to play when it's windier out there. When we're seeing the Open Championship, a lot of times we see those high scores as it's windier out there, link style. You got to keep the ball low and run it up there to play it well. You can't just bring it in and shoot darts. So what can we do to keep it lower? So here's what I'd recommend doing. It really depends on how heavy the wind is, but I would recommend you got to club up. The way you can hit it lower is with less loft. So let's say it's a par 3, okay, and it's 150 yards. Maybe that's normally an 8-iron for you. In this situation, if it's into the wind or something like that, if it's into the wind, it may be a really heavy wind, and if you just hit enough club to get there in front of the wind, it's going to go high most likely, right? So maybe it's a 2-club wind, and maybe you would normally hit, you would hit an 8-iron there, so maybe you hit a 6-iron. But what happens is that when you hit kind of a normal shot, even though you're taking a shot that has less or a club that has less loft, it may end up ballooning on you, end up going higher, and you may lose even more distance. So what I recommend doing is clubbing up one extra. So maybe you think about how much would I club up normally just into this wind. So if it's a 2-club wind, which would be a pretty brisk wind, right? It's probably like a 20-mile-per-hour wind. If it's a 2-club wind, then I may take an extra club and choke up 1 inch on the club, and then also maybe take a 3/4 swing. It might still be a full swing, but maybe more like a 3/4 swing. And what that allows me to do is that allows me to hit the club with a little less speed and a little less loft, which takes off spin on the shot. So extra club, maybe 1 extra, choke up a little bit, maybe a 3/4 swing, keeps the ball lower. And a lot of times when you hit it into the wind, it adds spin to the golf ball. So a lot of times you won't get that ball that will carom off of the green because it's coming in so low. A lot of times it will hit and it won't roll out very much because you got the wind pushing back on it, right? So now if you got those side winds, you want to keep it out of the wind a little bit. You can do a very similar thing. Now you won't need to take as much extra club because you're not hitting directly into the wind. But if you have a side wind or something like that, you can take some extra club, you can choke down on it, and then take more of a 3/4 swing. If that's really the easiest way to do it. Now, a more an advanced way to do it would be to de-loft the club, to really try to take a lot off the club. Now, we don't want to de-loft it or hit it lower by hitting more down into the golf ball, because when you hit more down into the ball, what happens is you end up adding more spin, which may come out lower, but then that ball is going to end up ballooning on you. And also, when you hit down on the ball too much, you will end up not getting as much compression on the golf ball. You won't be able to get as much energy transferred to the golf ball. Because you imagine if I came into a golf ball more like this versus more like this. Which one's transferring more energy to the golf ball? The one that's going straight into the ball, right? Not the one that's chopping down into it. So that's what's going on there. So a more advanced way would be to come in with more forward shaft lean. So you need to feel like you're opening your body more, like you're turning down this handle, getting the hands more in front at impact, and that's going to allow you to get that a lower ball flight. But that's a more advanced way. The easiest way to do it is just to take more club, choke up, take a 3/4 swing, and that will keep the ball lower. I mean, don't be afraid. I think a lot of people go out with this ego thing too. You're playing with a buddy. Maybe it's a 150-yard hole, and you're afraid they might ask you what you're hitting. And if it's a 5-iron, they're like, "Whoa, 5-iron? What are you hitting a 5-iron for?" Right? And they might be hitting an 8-iron. Well, if you're going to be knocking it on the green, they're going to be knocking it 30 yards short with their 8-iron. So they're going to be hitting that big old balloon ball up there. So then you can tell, well, that's why I hit a 5-iron. I try to keep it out of the wind a little bit. So don't be afraid to take more club if you need to. And this is definitely something you'll want to go practice. A lot of times the best time to go practice is a windy day out on the range. So you can kind of get an idea. You want to practice this shot, this choked up 3/4 swing type shot, and see what kind of reactions you get. See where that ball is landing. Maybe the ball lands a little bit further for you than it does for me. Our swings are going to be different. So maybe your wind ball doesn't translate the same way that mine does. Maybe you hit yours a little bit further, a little bit shorter. So it's definitely something that you want to take note of. But that's typically what I do is I think about, okay, what club would I normally hit here if I was just trying to hit a full normal swing? What would I end up doing? If I take 1 extra club, then I'll take 2 extra clubs. I'll choke up and take a 3/4 swing. And that puts me about in the right area, and it allows me to keep that ball lower and have a lot more control of it. And the less spin you have on it, the less the wind's going to take it and curve it off. Because if you have, let's say you take a shot and you put a lot of spin on it, if it's off just a little bit, if you don't pure it, that wind's just going to take that ball wherever direction. It's just going to expose it. If normally you would have just hit it just a little bit of fade, well, with a brisk wind, that little fade is going to turn into a big old slice and may spell trouble for you. So work on getting that choke up a little bit, 3/4 swing. That's really the easiest way to do it. All right, next question here. It's from Mark C. Says, when I do a full shoulder turn with my driver and I find hard to transfer my weight back to the lead foot, do you have a drill for that? Yes, I recommend doing the step drill Step drills in the 20-minute distance fix. Could be you could also be swaying your hips a little bit too much. That's going to make it difficult. So make sure that you are turning your hips and not swaying your hips, right? So there's a difference between this, right, and this. So you don't want to be swaying your hips. If you look at most tour players, what you're going to find is if you draw a line on the outside of your hip, of their hip right here, this is a right-handed golfer, you're going to see they don't ever go into that line. They are just turning their hips like it's on a swivel, basically. That's basically what's going on. You're not going to see that. So if you get to where you get your left hips lower, then quite a bit lower than your right hip or your trail hip, that means that you're swaying the hips. It's going to be pretty difficult to get that good weight shift to the lead side. Whereas if you turn your hips properly, it's going to be a lot easier to get there. So keep that in mind when you're doing this. Check your swing on video and make sure you're not swaying the hips. If you are swaying the hips, there's some great drills on the website to work on that. May also be the stable fluid spine. You may want to work on that. There's the reverse pivot drill in the stable fluid spine course. That's also a really good one to work on this. But that's going to allow you to be in a better position at the top. So make sure that you're not doing that. Check that on video, see what's going on there. Now, if it's just a matter of I'm having a hard time getting my weight transfer, what's actually happening is in the backswing, the last part of the backswing, we need to have a little bit of momentum going to our lead side, right? So you may be getting up at the top here fully loaded, and then shifting your weight, and then the arms, or maybe you're throwing the arms, and then the arms are kind of bringing the weight through and all that good stuff. So that's not what you want to do. You want to make sure that you're getting that good weight shot. So you think about a baseball player, right? A pitcher, if they're going up, the ball, they're putting this ball back and they're moving forward, right? So that's what we need to be happening in the golf swing. This club is starting to go back. We're loading up, and then we're starting to go forward just before we start with the arms. That's what's going to allow you to get that good weight shift to the lead side. And that's what Clay does in the step drill. It's a sumo step drill in the 20-minute distance fix. So number one, look and see if you're moving your spine properly. You want to make sure that you're pivoting and you're not swaying the hips. That's going to be in the stable fluid spine course. Click the home icon at the top of the screen. Scroll down on the screen. You'll see a list of all the courses. Go to the stable fluid spine course and work through the course, making sure that your spine is nice and stable. Because if you get where you're leaning off, it's going to be difficult to get that proper weight shift. And then if you got the good spine angle, that all looks good, then go on to the 20-minute distance fix and go to the sumo step drill. It's going to be in the week 1 drills. It's outdoor drill 2 in the week 1 drills. To get to the 20-minute distance fix, all you have to do is click the instruction tab or hover your mouse over the instruction tab at the top of the screen. That will expand a menu. The first option there is going to be the 20-minute distance fix. Click that. Go to week 1. You'll see outdoor drill 2 is a sumo step. Or you can also search sumo step on the website. We actually have a fantastic search engine on the website. It works very well. All you have to do is go to the upper right-hand corner. If you're on your desktop or laptop or something like that, upper right-hand corner, and just 2 words, sumo step, and you'll find the drill that I'm talking about. If you're on a mobile device, in the upper right-hand corner, there are 3 horizontal lines. If you click on that, that'll expand a menu. If you scroll to the bottom of that menu, you'll find that search engine. And that just doesn't work for the sumo step drill. That works for anything. So if you're looking for stuff on slicing, you're looking for stuff on whatever it is, put in a keyword in there, and odds are we have a video on it. Daniel, we have videos for hitting into the wind. So check those videos out too. I know we have 1. We may not have 2. But I know there's at least 1. It's in the special shots vault. So check those out if you want to. So Julian J says, is it acceptable to have a straight right back leg at the top of the backswing? Yeah, that's completely fine. The main thing is you don't want to lock it up. So that's why a lot of instructors say don't straighten out that leg. Because, well, part of it is that a lot of times when you straighten out that leg, it means that you're just swaying. So that's part of it. So you need to make sure that you're pivoting, like I talked about earlier, that you're pushing the hip back. So if I look at my leg here in the backswing, I want to make sure that I'm pivoting back and not doing that, right? So if I straighten out my leg and I just do that, that's going to put me in a tough position here at the top of the swing. I want to pivot when I'm going to. I'm pushing my right hip back and deep here. I'm at the top of the swing. The other thing is that if we get and we straighten out that leg, what happens that I see a lot of people is that they lock it, right? And if you lock it, it's hard to rotate. So try not to hyperextend it and then lock it. Allow it to still have a little bit of flex in it if you can. If it completely straightens, that's fine. You just have to make sure that you get down in more of an athletic position in the downswing. You got to flex it down in the downswing so that you can rotate the hips. Otherwise, if you lock it, you're going to have a hard time getting rotation in the downswing. So yeah, it's fine to have that. You just want to make sure that you stay in athletic position as you're coming down the downswing, so that way you can rotate. All right, so Rufus I says, at the top of the swing, looking at various tour players, I see a lot of difference on how back the hands go by looking at the angle of the left arm to the target line. Some, like Zach Johnson's, don't go back far, while others seems to have the left arm 90 degrees to the target line. Any rules of thumb there? That's exactly right. There's no universal rule for how far you have to go. It's more of a range of motion thing. I would be focusing on making sure you're getting at least a 90-degree shoulder turn. And then if you can get your arms further back, then great. If not, then it's not a big deal. Everybody, is a little bit different. Everyone's anatomy is a little bit different. Not everyone's built the same way. Some people have bigger chests and bigger arms than others, and some have more flexible shoulders and can get their arms in certain positions than others. I wouldn't look at tour players and try to copy exactly. There's no universal truth there as far as the arm position is concerned. It's really about the shoulders. If you look at all tour players, they're all getting at least a 90-degree tour shoulder turn there. So that's what I'd be really focusing on, is getting that shoulder turn as much as you can. Really, the piece of the top speed golf system plus the move, and even some tour players aren't doing the move exactly, but what basically the top speed golf system, that's what all tour players are doing. Every single tour player are nailing these pieces of the golf swing. So if you get to where you're nailing these 5 pieces of the golf swing, then that you're covering the most important pieces. Everything else is kind of a micro movement. The 5 moves, those are macro movements. Those are the most important things. And then everything else in between is more of a micro movement. It's not as important, but it's kind of the fine tuning thing. What most people are doing is they're focusing on the micro movements because they think it's going to be the one thing that makes them a scratch player, and it's just not the case. And plus, you can't really do the micro movements unless you're already doing the macro movements. So you got to make sure that you're nailing the big pieces of the swing. That's going to be 90-95% of the issues right there. And make sure your spine is good. Make sure your shoulder turn is good. You got to have lag, your impression line. You got to be releasing that club out in front. If you're doing all those things, you're going to be able to play great golf. Everything else in between that is really just fine-tuning the swing. All right, so Luke F says, hey, Q, Clay mentions doing favorite exercises from the 20 MDF weekly once we've completed it. I'm just finishing level 1 of the stable fluid spine. Should I mix in some of the 20-minute distance fix drills with this? Wait till I've moved through the whole TSG system first. It really depends on how much time you have to practice and what's the most important thing to you. If you have a ton of time to practice, then I'd be doing some technique work. I'd be doing some speed work. I'd be doing some ball striking skill level building type work. You can definitely, I wouldn't be doing them all at the same time. Like I wouldn't be working on my speed training and trying to do my spine angles training at the same time. You got to separate them. So you can, depending on how much time you have to practice, you can work on some technique and for a little bit, then work on some speed training for a little bit, and then maybe work on some skill training, which would be our ball striking masterclass type training. And that's, those of you who aren't familiar with what that is, that's essentially just controlling your ball flight, hitting draws and fades, hitting high and low, hitting it, controlling your ground contact, hitting it before the ball, after the ball, thin, chunky shots, flushed shots, alternating between those kinds of shots, hitting it on the toe, on the heel, in the center, basically doing interleaving practice with all of those. So that's kind of building your skill. So your technique is what allows you to be in a good position at impact to make it easier to acquire those skills. But you can improve your skill training. You can improve your skills even with bad technique. So you can hit a fantastic golf shot if you hit it in the center of the face with a square club face, a club that's on plane, and you make ball first contact, meaning you don't hit behind the ball. You make ball first contact. You can have terrible technique, and if you nail all those 4 pieces, you're going to hit a good golf shot. You can have perfect technique, but if just one of those pieces is off, you hit a little bit behind the ball. You swing too much into out or out to in. You hit it on the toe or on the heel. Right? The face is open, the face is closed. If any one of those pieces is off, you're not going to hit a good golf shot, even though you may have had perfect technique. So that's really what it comes down to is you work on. There's basically 3 areas that I'd recommend working on. One's going to be your technique, which is the Top Speed Golf System plus the move. 2 is going to be your speed training, which is the 20-minute distance fix. And 3 is going to be your ball striking training, which is the ball striking masterclass. Plus, we have other videos on the website that go into skill training and things like that if you want to look at that. But it really depends on how much time you have to practice and what's most important to you. So if speed isn't important to you and you really want to work on getting the technique down, then I put most of your eggs into that basket. Or maybe just work a little bit on the technique. Our technique our speed training program, it's not a lot of time. You have to commit to it. That's part of the great part about speed training is that you don't have to put a lot of time and effort into it, and you can get great results. Our program, it's 3 days a week, 2 range sessions and 1 home session. So it's 3 days a week that comprises of 2 range sessions and 1 home session. And they can be done in 20 minutes, all of them. So now in real time, it's probably going to take you a little bit more than that because you got to drive to the range, get your bucket of balls, go out there, get warmed up. But the actual drills themselves, if you go through them, it's 20 minutes. That's how long it takes to do them. And the home drills are the same way. So it's not a lot of time. And we're seeing most people are gaining somewhere in the neighborhood of 12, 13 miles per hour going through the program over the course of it's a 3-week program. It's not something that you do forever and ever and ever. It's a 3-week program. And really, if you're not satisfied with your speed, or maybe not even that, if you can continue to get gains, you continue to go through the course. That's what I would do. I would the only time I would stop going through the course where I feel like I've kind of tapped my potential for speed is if I'm just not making any gains anymore. I mean, at that point, I would say, okay, I think I've gotten everything that I can out of this. Maybe it's time to go on to something else and maybe just sprinkle in a little bit of speed training every now and then with what I'm doing. So yeah, it really just depends on what you work on. I would just separate them. Don't work on ball striking and speed at the same time. Don't work on technique and skill at the same time. You got to separate them out to get the most out of them as you're working on them. So Eric D says, I've got a real chicken wing problem in my follow through. I'm at 66 years old, brand new golfer, just finished the speed course. So Eric, I talked about this earlier, but a chicken wing is just caused by the arms out racing the body. You also don't want to confuse a good chicken wing with a bad chicken wing. So a good chicken wing would be something that you see with Brooks Koepka, where you're seeing that he's in this kind of position right here. You see that's kind of a chicken wing, but I'm in a great impact position and I'm releasing this club out in front, just like we talked about in the Top Speed Golf System. So if that is the case, then your chicken wing is fine. It's actually desirable. That's what you want to have. A lot of the best ball strikers out there have that. But if it's looking something like this, where you're releasing the club early, your body's not rotating, and it's something like that kind of chicken wing, then that's the bad one. That's the one that you don't want. That's costing you probably a lot of speed and distance, and it's making it difficult for you to square up the face, probably control your face and path, and so on and so forth. So it's caused by the arms outracing the body. So the first thing I try to do is just try to make sure that you're continuing to rotate through contact, all the way through. People talk about this kinetic chain, right? I hear this all the time where people are talking about you want parts of your swing to slow down so that things can accelerate. So I want to come in and I want to stop my hips so that my arms can fire. That is really terrible advice, because what that does is that causes a chicken wing. That causes you to flip the club and lose a lot of your speed and have a hard time controlling face and path. So your hips are going to slow down on their own. You don't need to try to slow them down. Your hips are going to slow down. You have a certain amount of range of motion. If you were to stand here like this, I can rotate my hips that much that way and that much that way. I don't need to try to slow down my hips as I'm coming into impact. They're going to be slowing down on their own as I'm reaching my range of the end of my range of motion. I don't need to try to make that happen. It's going to happen naturally. So you got to try and keep those hips moving as you're coming through contact. Now, there's all kinds of reasons why you may not be opening up your hips. It's really impossible for me to know without seeing your swing. But the first thing I would do is to just try to make sure that you're rotating your hips through contact. I'd make sure that your compression line is good. So the line from your ankle to your hip to your shoulder, you're not bumped out like this. If your chicken wing looks something like this, right, you can't rotate your hips when your hips are bumped out like that. Everything's going to get blocked up. So we need to make sure that my hip is going back this way as I'm coming through contact so that it can rotate. So that's what I'd recommend doing. If you'd like me to take a look at your swing, we do offer unlimited swing reviews. Like I said earlier, unfortunately, I don't have any spots available right now, but click the Get Review link at the top of the page. That will take you to the swing review page. Join the waiting list so that way you can be notified whenever I open up spots. I'll try to open up spots as much as I can, but it really just depends on, if people cancel, my time frees up and so on and so forth. So I don't know when I'm going to be able to open up spots. Again, I'm at a full student load, but if you join that waiting list, then you'll get notified. And I usually sell out to the waiting list, so make sure you join that waiting list. Otherwise, you may not be notified whenever I have spots available. So David F. says, if my PRGS shows a ball speed when I don't hit a ball, is it measuring the club head speed at a different point in the swing? That's a good question. I'm not really sure. I notice that sometimes too. I think it just must be picking up on something that maybe you're hitting. Because I really only notice it when I hit something with the ground. And it might be picking up on something that I hit off the ground. So maybe like a little tiny rock or something like that. But no, it's not picking. I don't think it's picking up your club head speed at another point. I think it's just picking up a little particle in the air or something. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but yeah, I notice that sometimes too. It gives me ball speed numbers sometimes when I swing through the air and I hit the ground. But I would really just be focusing on the actual club head speed number when you're just swinging through the air. That's the one that you want to pay attention to. So Douglas H. says, in a recent office hours, you explained that both the shallowing of the club and squaring the club face occur in the downswing. Can you begin to shallow the club in the backswing or at the top instead of waiting till the downswing? No, it has to happen in the downswing. Folks, you don't hit the golf ball with your backswing. You hit it with the downswing. That's why you have to do it in the downswing. If I shallow the club in the backswing, right, if I'm doing this in the backswing, what am I going to want to do in the downswing? I'm going to want to go like that. I'm going to want to come down steep because that club has momentum to go that way. I want to bring this club here and then shallow out the club. And also understand that shallowing the club just means getting the club on plane. If you bring the club up and it's already shallowed out, then just keep it there. But I find that most people who bring the club up and they bring the club up flat and it's shallowed out, they typically come over the top and come down steep. So it's actually typically easier to bring the club up more vertically and then let the club shallow out from there because then the momentum is going in that direction. As far as squaring the face goes, you can square the face in the backswing. You can do that, but it has to be happening in the downswing too, right? So you can do it like a Dustin Johnson, right? You're bringing it up. You've got this bowed wrist, crazy bowed wrist here at the top of the screen. You can do that, but you have to be doing that in the downswing too. It has to stay there. You can't be like this and then do that in the downswing and then cup your wrist in the downswing. That's why I see with most people. Most people who I see who try to DJ the wrist at the top end up completely undoing it in the downswing. They'll do this, come down steep, and then come down like that at impact. That's typically what I see. So you can do all this. You can do that squaring of the face in the backswing, but it also has to be doing it in the downswing. And just because you do it in the backswing doesn't mean it's automatically going to happen in the downswing. So it's going to feel more like a hold, like you're holding on to it square when you're coming down. So really the easiest way to do it is to do it the way that we talk about in the move course, in the tennis racket drill. That's really the easiest way to do it, is to go up to the top, however you do it, your natural way, whatever you do, and then you get this club shallowing out, you get it on plane, and you square the face in that move right there. That's really the easiest way to do it, and that's the way that 90% of players do it on the tour, and that's because it is the easiest way to do it. So that's why I recommend doing it. I find that a lot of people, they ask these questions because they're trying to find an easier way to do it, and there really isn't necessarily an easier way to do it. You just have to put in the work and the time. It's not an easy thing to do, folks. It's not, if it was easy, then everyone would be coming down with tons of compression and be hitting little low lasers and rockets and all these kinds of things. If it was easy, then everyone would do it. It's not easy to do, especially if it's not a natural movement for you. So you just got to do the work, and you know what you need to do, and now it's just time to do the work, right? So get the repetitions in, go slow, do the pausing reps, exaggerate as much as possible. If you can't do it slow, then you cannot do it fast. So make sure that you're able to do it slow and then build up the speed from there. So that's what I recommend doing. It's going to take a lot of time and repetition. So for those of you who have never really made a real swing change in their life, it's a lot of work, and you may not think that it's worth it, which is completely fine. If that is the case, then I'd be working on making sure that your pieces of the Top Speed Golf system that are good, making sure that those are good. And I'd also be working through our 20-minute distance fix course, because that's one of the easiest ways to improve your game, is to get speed. I would much rather have a golfer who doesn't have that great of a swing, but swings 110 miles per hour, than to have someone who has a picture perfect swing and swings 80, 90 miles per hour. Because that person who doesn't have the greatest swing and swings 110 is most likely going to be able to beat that other person, even though they're a good player. So that's just the size of it. Unfortunately, the power and speed is a big part of the game. I shouldn't say unfortunately. That's a great thing, because it's one of the easiest things to be able to improve. So if you're not looking to put in a lot of time and effort and work into getting forward shaft lean, because it is a very time. I've done it. I've gone through it. It takes a long time. It's not an easy thing to do. It's years. I've worked on it for years, and I'm still not exactly where I want to be. Now, I haven't been working on it as diligently as I should be. I work on it in spurts. I work on it pretty hard for a few weeks, and then I won't for a while, but I haven't been able to get to where I'm really launching the ball the way I want to until fairly recently. And even right now, I still have spurts where I know that I flipped it a little bit. So it takes a lot of time and effort and hard work to do it. And it's not for everybody, for sure. All right. So SMN says, can you show me how to position the golf ball in my stance, especially fairway woods and irons? So here's the easiest ball stance thing you can think of. So you only need two ball positions. One is for the ball shots that you hit off like a turf, and one is for shots with the driver that you hit up on it with a tee. Slightly ahead of the middle of your stance. So if you have your proper spine angle here, that's going to be straight down from the lead ear. That's just ahead of the middle of your stance. You can do that for every single club that you hit off the turf. That's going to be a pretty good position for about everybody. For a driver, straight down from the lead shoulder, right there. And that's going to allow the club to bottom out and then work up into the golf ball to get some really good compression, high launch, and low spin on it. That's as simple as it gets. If you want to take it a step further and have 4 ball positions, then you will add two. You'll be 3 total ball positions for shots that are hit off the turf. For about all your clubs, straight down from the lead ear is going to be a good spot, which is just ahead of the middle of your stance. With wedges, you can go a ball back of that. This is what I do. I go a ball back of the middle, or a ball back of where that standard position is, which is going to be about the middle of my stance with a wedge. This allows me to hit down on the ball a little bit more and to have a little bit more forward shaft lean at contact, which is ideal for wedges. That's going to allow me to get more spin and a lower trajectory shot, which is what I want. You don't have to do it, but this is just what I do. So that's what I do. And then for your upper iron, so like a 4-iron, a 3-iron, hybrids, your fairway woods, I'll play that a ball forward of my standard position, right? So straight down from my lead ear, I'll go a ball forward of that, and that allows me to come in a little bit more shallow, which allows me to get a little bit shallower of a divot, a little bit higher launch, which is typically what you want for those the 3-wood. You don't want that little laser shot that you can't get up in the air. You want that one that kind of goes up in the air and goes down there a ways. So that's really a simple. That's all you have to do. This whole idea where you have to have a different ball position for every single club, that's way too complicated. It does not need to be that complicated. All right. So Manu D says, thanks, Quentin. Appreciate the answer to my question. No problem. Practic Wise says, I noticed that when extend my arms away from my body 2 inches further when addressing the ball, I'm able to make a bigger turn on the backswing. What do you think? It's hard for me to know. I don't know without seeing your swing, but hey, if you're getting a bigger turn, then heck, that sounds good to me. So yeah, if it's getting you more speed and more turn, then there's nothing wrong with that. A lot of people put too much thought into how their arms and their hands are positioned at address. It's different for everybody. There's no universal truth there. You address the ball in the best way that gives you the best impact. Impact's the only thing that matters. Everyone needs to be in this position at impact. Everyone needs to be right here. You can be like this at address. You can be like this at address. You can be like this at address. It doesn't matter as long as you are here. So set up in whatever way allows you to be in the best position at impact. If setting your hands more forward gives you more shoulder turn in the backswing, then that's great because you're most likely getting more speed from doing that. So that's what I say, but it's hard for me to know exactly without seeing your swing for sure. So Tim F says, on 20-minute distance fix, should I keep doing the drills for week number 1 over for the first week before moving to week 2 drills? Can I overdo the number of times I do the drills? Yeah, I recommend if you're new to speed training, I recommend just doing what we tell you to do. So week 1, if you want to get in some extra time with the drills, that's fine, but it's not necessary. You don't need to do that. It really, all you need, I know it doesn't seem like a lot, but all you need is those 3 sessions. That's all you need is do those 3 sessions, and your speed will go up. If you got some extra time to practice, then I would work on the Top Speed Golf system. Work through the pieces in there separately. You're not going to be working on your spine angle and the sumo step and the power turn drill and the 20-minute distance fix at the same time. You work on the technique separately. But really just stick to what we're talking about, what we're doing in the program. 2 speed training sessions on the range and then 1 at home. If you do that, you're going to get great gains. Just stick with that. More isn't always better in this case. You can do a little bit more if you want. If you want to go out and give it another try with the catapult drill and see if you can get a little bit more, that's completely fine. But really all you need to do to get great results is to just do the program as it's laid out, and you'll get great results. So Ted D says, when I shift to my lead leg, trying to get into the straight line release position, I often get a hip pain in that leg. Is that correct way of moving your hip? Lead hip, i.e. shift and then turn your hip, or turn your hip as you shift your lead to the side. So what you're probably doing is you're sliding. So look at your swing on video and see what's going on there. But probably what you're doing is you're probably doing this right here. You're getting out of your compression line. Remember, our compression line is the line that goes from our lead ankle, lead hip, lead shoulder. We want that to all be in a straight line, slightly angled away from the target. And most likely, if you're really sliding your hips, you're probably not opening them very much, because when you slide your hips, they're locking them up. And when you lock them up and you can't rotate, you're typically going to release early. So feel like your lead hip is actually going, you're getting that shift of weight to your lead side, but you're not sliding. So you feel that pressure in your lead foot. And then I try to feel like you're pushing your hip away from the ball and away from the target. It's moving back that way. And you'll find you'll be able to get your hips a lot more open as you're coming into contact, and be a lot easier to release that club out in front. But odds are you're bumping the hips, and that's why you're getting that pain, because everything's getting all jammed up in there and rubbing on each other. It's going to make it difficult to rotate. All right. So Graham T says, when I achieve forward shaft lean, my right wrist is bent back as instructed, but videos indicate my left should also be bending back at impact. But videos indicate my left should also be bending back at impact. I find my left wrist is not always bent back, but my club is dead square at impact. Is that left wrist feeling only? So your lead, depending on how strong or weak your grip is really the position of your lead hand. Your trail wrist, no matter how strong or weak your grip is, it's going to be in a bent back position. Your trail wrist is going to be in that bent back position, no matter if you're strong or weak. So a strong grip would be this, right? So that's a crazy strong grip. If I come into contact, you can see my trail wrist is in a bent back position. If I have a weak grip, so that's will be looking more like this. As I come into contact, you see my trail wrist is still in a bent back position. Now, the lead wrist, that changes. If I have a weak grip, when I come into contact, I'm going to need to have a little bit more wrist flexion, which is where my palm kind of bends down. I'm going to need to have a little bit more wrist flexion when I come into contact, right? So if you see there, I have a little bit of bowing in my lead wrist. Now, if I have a very strong grip, so that's where my grip is more on the side here. This is like super strong, but I'm doing this exaggeration so you can see what I'm talking about. If I come into contact, square club face, forward shaft lean, look at my wrist. It actually appears to be, there's going to be a little bit of cupping there. You can see that's the position that my wrist is in with a square club face. So really the only thing that matters is impact. So if you have a square club face and forward shaft lean, no matter what orientation your wrists are in, that is correct, right? No matter what it is, if you're achieving the correct impact position, then the position of your wrist is correct. So, but to make that happen, typically it's going to be wrist extension with the trail wrist, and sometimes it's going to be flexion or flat or wrist extension. It's going to be somewhere in between there. It's not going to be a lot, right? So you're not going to see somebody who has all this wrist flexion at contact. I can't even hit the ball. I can't. That's kind of the position I would have to be in impact for that to happen. That's just not even really physically possible. I'm not going to have a crazy cup in the wrist. In order to do that, I'd have to be like this coming into impact. Like that's a square club face right there. But you can see there I'm scooping the ball up. What you're typically going to see with people who flip is that trail wrist is going to be flat, and you're going to see a little bit of cupping in that lead wrist. If you have a really strong grip, you might see a lot of cupping in that lead wrist. You're going to see more if that is the case. So it really depends on your grip. But hey, if you're getting forward shaft lean and square club face, then you're definitely on the right track. I wouldn't be worried about the position of your wrist as long as you're getting the results that you want. All right. Probably not going to be able to get to everyone's questions today. I do apologize. We're right at 6 o'clock right now. So unfortunately, I do have a lot of things I got to do today, so I won't be able to answer everybody's questions. But we'll take a couple more here. So we'll answer Thomas D and James M, and then we'll wrap it up there. I do apologize. Usually I do get to everybody's questions, but a lot of questions being asked today, more than usual. So Thomas D says, when I chip or pitch with 60-degree wedge, it consistently goes 45 degrees or more right. Yes, I leave the face open a little bit, but I make sure I turn through shot and square the face, but it appears to roll up the face and still go away right. Many times goes low right, a little thin or in shanky, very confused and frustrated as it really ruins the hole. You're just shanking it. That's all you're doing is you're hitting it off the hosel. So if you're chipping and pitching and you're shanking the ball, typically the first thing I would do is I would try to intentionally hit the ball off the toe. That's the first thing I would do, because what's happening right now is you're hitting all your shots right here on the hosel. When you hit it on the hosel, look at the hosel's pointed. It's pointed right. It's less loft, and it's pointed out to the right. So that's exactly where you're hitting it, right? Or it's somewhere in this area, right? So if you're hitting it here and you're trying to hit it in the center of the face, then you need to adjust your feel to hitting it on the toe so that you can get it more in the center of the face. So that's the first thing I would do is I would try to hit the ball off the toe, and instantly you'll probably start hitting the ball more solid. So that's the first thing I would do. The second thing I might do is make sure that you're not standing too close to the golf ball. I see a lot of people. I even see tour players doing this, which is a little surprising. But I see a lot of people. They really crowd the ball with their chips. They're just on top of the golf ball. And I tell you what, if you get your hips moving toward the ball at all, you're taking away any space that you have, and that's just going to move that hosel toward the golf ball in the downswing. So give yourself some space there. There's no reason why you need to be on top of the ball like this. Give yourself some space for the hands to move through and come into the ball. So that would be the second piece there. The third piece is I would look at your hips and look at your hips on video and make sure you're not doing that action in your pitches. That's what I see all the time is I see the hips moving toward the golf ball. So open up your body, stay in your lead heel, feel that in your glute. You're going to feel your glute, your lead glute, your left glute is going to be flexed here. Stay there and push your hip away from the golf ball as you're coming through. So don't push your hip toward the golf ball, or what I see most of the time is the right hip's kind of going toward the golf ball. Push your lead hip away from the golf ball as you're coming through, and that will clear it out of the way. So if you set up a little bit open, stay in your lead heel. If it's a longer pitch shot, you might want to be more balanced, but if it's a shorter one where you can kind of stay in your lead heel, I would stay there. You're going to feel that flex in your glute there and really try to push your glute away, push your backside away from the ball as you're coming through. And that will allow you to clear. You can see how I'm clearing through, and that's allowing me to stay through the shot and not move my body toward the shot. Because the other thing that happens when I do this is that my club works too much from the inside. And when you swing too much from the inside, if this is the golf ball, this club is working in that way. Look what's heading right at the golf ball. The hosel is, whereas coming down more like this, right on plane, then the center of the face is moving right at the golf ball. You're going to be a lot more consistent when you do that. So those are the things I would do. Number one, try to hit it off the toe. Number two is to look at yourself on video and make sure you're not standing too close to the golf ball. Maybe stand a couple more inches away. Number three is to get into your lead side, move your hip away from the ball as you're coming through contact instead of toward the golf ball. And number four is look where your club is coming down into the golf ball. If it's coming in way from the inside, you may want to feel like you're more over the top. But most likely, if that club's working too much from the inside, it's from what's happening in number three, which is the hips moving toward the golf ball, because that's dropping the club from the inside. So make sure you look at those things because those may be going on. So last question here. I do apologize for not being able to answer everybody's questions. I could only be on here for an hour. James M says, hi, Q. You must have to answer this question a lot. When you release your swing at your left leg, do you snap your wrist? Thanks. Yes, the wrist is going to be whipping through, but trust me, it's not going to feel like you feel like you're snapping your wrist right now because you're probably not rotating your hips and you're probably releasing the club early. So the way that you feel to get speed is by doing this. If you release the club properly, you're not really going to feel like you need to do that. The momentum of the club is going to be doing it for you because your body is rotating and the club is whipping through. So that's a question from someone I know that is most likely releasing the club early because they're used to that feeling of that snap through impact. So you probably need to not feel that in order to make that happen. What I would actually feel like is the opposite feeling. So I would do something that's almost kind of like a check swing feeling. So if you're someone who's releasing the club early, you're most likely not rotating very much and throwing the arms in front and flipping that wrist through contact and snapping it through because that's how you square the face and that's how you were able to get any kind of speed. What good ball strikers do is they come in and they rotate and the momentum of the club is coming through and it's snapping through contact. There's no real feeling of this snap of the wrist because the club is happening on its own. It's automatic, right? So what I would try to feel like is that you're coming in and it's almost like a check swing, right?
So if I'm a baseball player and I'm coming in and I'm going to hit this, I'm a home run hitter and I'm getting ready to hit this ball, but all of a sudden I see that it's high and I want to hold off of it. I'm going to go something like that, right? I'm going to go like that. That's the check swing. So you can see that's kind of the opposite of what a flipper's doing. What a flipper's doing is they're going like that, right? They're not really rotating their body. They're just throwing their arms at it. So what you need to feel like is that you're coming down and you're going like that. That's going to help you feel what your body needs to do. And then from there, once you get here, then it's firing through contact. So try that kind of check swing feeling and see if that helps. And that's going to, once you do that and you got to get that feeling, you're going to realize, oh, that club's just whipping through there. I'm not really feeling any kind of snap or anything. It's the club's just whipping through. And that's the feeling that it actually is when you're going through contact. So again, I do apologize. Man, there were a lot of questions. I apologize, everybody. It's probably the most questions I've ever gotten in office hours. So I do apologize. But join me tomorrow. Be here tomorrow, 9 a.m. Eastern time. If you'd like to join me again at that time, hopefully I was able to answer new people's questions. But yeah, thanks everybody for joining me, and I'll be down here. I'll be back on here tomorrow, 9 a.m. Eastern time. Take a look at the schedule for times you can join me the rest of the week.